Hello again. This is part 2. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain. We all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Those, of course, were lyrics from a song by Bill Withers called Lean on Me. And this song is so special to me because we sang this song in our final service at the end of Camp Bridges every year. As you can see, I'm wearing my Camp Bridges shirt. I was always on the red team. And that song was so special to me. But anyway, I'm not a psychologist. I didn't even ever work in psychiatric nursing. But what I did do was for 14 years, I volunteered at this camp, which was a bereavement camp for children, sponsored by hospice. And I got into that because of my neighbor, Mike. He's retired now, but at the time, he was the camp director, and he was the director of children's programming at hospice. So that's how I got involved and started volunteering. And those are a few of the experiences that I want to share with you. And I'm almost doing it kind of as my rebuttal to Donna saying that young children don't feel sadness, or maybe she meant specifically Ben and Lincoln. Before I start that, I want to thank Tanica's 2 cents, who very graciously and generously shared some emails with Spill the Crime Tea. And these emails were between Donna and Wendy, and I'd never seen them before. And if you haven't, y'all probably have by now, but if you haven't, look for them. I know Judy has referred to them. Spill the Crime Tea, I think her name is Amy, if I'm not mistaken. She either shared them on her channel or on Leslie's when she did that live with Leslie. So find those emails if you haven't seen them. But the 2 things that stood out in those emails that upset me the most were, 1, Donna saying that young children don't experience sadness, and 2, Wendy telling a 3.5-year-old, Daddy is in a box under the dirt. Okay? Lincoln said, can we dig him up so I can play with them or hang out with them? So obviously, Wendy didn't explain anything else. She didn't even explain what death was. What did she tell him? I don't even get that. To me, that wasn't even just wrong parenting. That was neglecting their emotional needs, which is child abuse. So, yeah, I'm very amped up about these 2 things. So, I'm going to just talk about my experiences at Camp Bridges. And then if I remember, at the end, I want to talk about the experience I had that I was reminded of when I saw Leslie B's experience at a Jewish funeral. Okay, where to begin? Okay, this might sound disjointed, but I'm going to tie it in, okay? I've had an unanswered question my whole life. I'm 70 years old. I just found the answer to it. The question was, why does my family, my birth family, have this knee-jerk reaction to hate me? Why did they always view me through a negative lens? Why did they always, whatever was going on, they would jump to a conclusion to see me in the worst light possible? I never could understand that. And it didn't make me mad. It made me frustrated. I just didn't really get it because I loved them. Anyway, of all places, I found the answer to my question last week on Instagram. I was just flipping through, whatever. Something came up. It was 1 sentence, and here it is. People will make you out to be as bad as possible to justify their abusive treatment of you. Bingo, there's my answer, but I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about the Adelsons, because I think Donna, Wendy, Charlie, Harvey, I think all of them would have no problem being on the stand and saying under oath, I have done nothing wrong. Because in their mind, they have viewed Danny not through just a negative lens, but an evil lens. They've made him out to be the biggest monster on the face of the earth who deserved to be executed. Okay, so I think that ties into a saying, young children, Wendy, don't worry. Young children don't feel any sadness. You know, Donna had an education, an early childhood education. I know they didn't teach her that, but she has twisted things to suit her not feeling guilty for what she's done. Okay, let's talk about Camp Bridges now. Man, this has just been such a great experience. I just love kids. I just love little kids. Anyway, I was always working with I was always a counselor on the older kids team, 9 to 12-year-olds. And then the blue team was 5 to 8-year-olds. But we did have some activities we did all together. So I did get to know, I got to know my red team campers very well. But I did have some conversations with the younger ones. And since this remark Donna made was about younger ones, that's why I just wanted to bring up a couple of things I remember. So I was talking to this little girl. She was 5, just turned 5. While she was 4 years old, her mother was murdered. She came to camp. She seemed pretty good. Like, she didn't really talk about it a lot. She was kind of happy, just, enjoying the activities. And but I do remember her telling me, we were talking, and she just told me, my mommy died under a bridge. I mean, that's about all she said to me. And now we're going to set her aside, but I'm going to get back to her, okay? Okay, next is the little boy I was talking to. He was 6 years old. He had red hair and freckles and big blue eyes, adorable little kid. And we were talking a little bit about his mother, and he, was kind of talking about some of his sadness and experiences. But then he kind of puffed out his chest and he got really proud and he said, I have my mom's blue eyes. And later at home, I was thinking about some of these conversations and things, and I thought, you know what? That little boy, that's like the only thing tangible he has left of his mother, and he is hanging on to that he can look in the mirror and he can see, and he has his mother's eyes. That means so much to him. Okay, here's another incident or thing that stands out in my mind I wanted to tell you about, because one of the huge benefits of this camp was that a lot of kids are experiencing loss, and they might be, well, if a child has lost a grandparent to natural causes, not that I'm knocking their grief, it's any less, but I think they're more likely to know someone else who's also lost a grandparent from natural causes. But the kids who have lost a family member from something really traumatic, it's very likely that they're the only kid in their classroom of 25, 30 kids who's going through that, and they feel all alone. And when they come to Camp Bridges, they've already gone through the whole program with Mike. He has counseled them at school. And did I already say this? Thank God for teachers. I love school teachers. They know the kids that have had a loss in their family, and if they notice that kid is showing some signs of struggling, they'll call Mike, and he'll come to the school once a week, and he has materials he uses that are age appropriate, even for little kids that can't read yet. They have little books, coloring books, things they go through and talk about everything, what it means, the natural cycle of life and death. And when they finish that program at the end of the school year, he'll invite the kids to come to the sleepover camp, and that's where they see all these other children who are experiencing something similar to them, and they don't feel so alone. And this one thing I want to tell you about was a little bit unusual to me, because that year we had not one and not two. We had 3 boys on the red team who had all lost their dad from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. 3 of them. And you can imagine something like that, and you're in your class at school. Nobody else there knows what you're going through, the horror of it all. But anyway, these three boys and I, it was the end of the day's activities. We were all kind of tired. It was almost bedtime, but not quite yet. And the lights had been lowered because we had watched a movie. And then these three boys and I were sitting together, leaning against the wall, in the lodge, and they started talking about their dads. Two of them did. And the other one was the oldest one of the three. He was 12, and he didn't ever talk much. And I'm just would guess that maybe at that age he's thinking he has to maybe be tough and not show his emotions and not want to cry in front of other people or whatever. But camp is such a safe environment that kids know they can speak whatever's on their mind or bothering them, and people are going to be there with compassion and understanding. So these two little boys start talking about their dad and how much they miss him, and they're sharing. And then finally that third boy and I'm there, and we had all been talking, but once they started kind of supporting each other, my job really is just to listen, like let them comfort each other. So I'm there, and they have allowed me in their little circle. I'm not eavesdropping, but I'm there, and they're talking. And then towards the end, that third boy that had never really said too much, he just kind of said in a low voice to us, "I dream about my dad all the time, and sometimes they're nightmares." To which one of the other boys then said to him, "I dream about my dad a lot too." And I don't know, for me, that was just a very poignant moment, seeing kids comforting each other. So, let's get back to that little girl that we set aside. I'm going to tell you what happened with her. The second day, we started the day in the chapel having a service, and we all sing Lean on Me all together. Then these ladies that are volunteers, they do it every year. They come in and they set up this really big wooden stand with a stage and curtains. It's like a little puppet theater. And they put on a play called There's Been a Death in the Forest Family. And they have puppets that are young rabbits and young raccoons, and then a mother deer, a grown-up deer. And they're not speaking the parts. They're playing a cassette tape that has the whole play and like musical interludes. It's kind of nice. And that as the animals are talking, they just have to move the puppet's mouth. So we watch this play every year, and inevitably there are children who just lose it and have a meltdown and start crying because it's so reminiscent of what they're going through in their family with their loved one. And yeah, that little girl I was telling you about, she broke down. She had such a meltdown of tears, and her counselor picked her up and held her on her lap. And you know what? Tell me that child isn't sad, Donna. I remember one, and it's not just the little kids. I remember one year there were two sisters sitting behind me. They were 11 and 12. And getting towards the end of that play, they both had a meltdown. They were bawling their eyes out. I got up and I turned around in my seat, and I'm leaning over the wooden top of like a church pew, and started just holding both of them. And then other counselors got in there and started helping them. And it's these kids do feel sadness. It's absolutely absurd to try to say they don't. Sometimes parents don't include their kids in the grieving process, not because of Donna's evil reasons, but because, first of all, you got to realize they're grieving too. They're in pain. And it's a parent's natural instinct to want to protect their child. So they want to shield their child away from the pain, or they might think, well, my child is too young to understand, or for whatever reason. Sometimes children get pushed a little bit to the sidelines. And in that case, it's like, thank God for these school teachers who notice. Thank God for Mike who comes in and helps them understand. And then at camp, it's just such a good experience for all of us. So anyway, to me, the play There's Been a Death in the Forest Family is so clever, because Mike gets up at the end of it and stands in front of all of us and sitting in the chapel, and he starts asking the kids questions like, how do you think the little raccoon felt when he said he was feeling guilty? He hadn't paid more attention to deer before he died, or like whatever. And kids who might not be able to raise their hand and say, I went through this or that, boy, they couldn't wait to say what they thought these little raccoons and bunnies were feeling. The feelings of like guilt or why wasn't I nicer to him? Or, people just have a tendency to be so hard on themselves, even children. So then after that discussion, the kids walk over a little bridge, which is kind of symbolic. To me, it always seemed like they're crossing over like in their own understanding and kind of acceptance that they have lost this person. And on the other side of the bridge, there's a little wall. And the kids have all been given the day before these, we call them memorial bricks. They're just rectangular pieces of styrofoam board that they can decorate with markers or stick on gems, little glue on gems, or some of them would write messages to their loved one, and then they cross the bridge, and then they put the brick on the wall. And, you should see some of those bricks or some of those messages. I remember seeing, Daddy, come back, I miss you. It's just kind of heartbreaking, but it's a part of the process to be able to talk about it and share and start the healing process, which was denied to the Markel boys. Why on earth would Ben or Lincoln share their feelings with Donna, who has told them she hates their dad, he's stupid, he's trying to steal her sunshines away? How on earth are they going to feel that's an environment where they can share? And who knows what was going on with Wendy, because as you'll see in these emails, he told his counselor at school he was really sad about his dad dying, and he wasn't able to talk to his mom about it. And of course, Wendy would be like, oh, that's not true. I give him all of, you know what? Damn it. That was true. That was true. She too wanted to always cast Dan in the worst possible light. She had Lincoln thinking he had been buried alive. You know what? I promised myself I was going to stay calm and not get so angry. So let's just leave it at that. The last thing we did at Camp Bridges is as we left the chapel, Mike handed each of us, campers and staff, a little wax paper flat envelope that had a chilled butterfly in it. And as butterflies warm up, then they're not dead, they're just asleep, I guess. And as they warm up, then they fly away, which is, I think, being very symbolic of their loved one's soul going to heaven, maybe. And Mike would carefully explain, when they wake up, they're still a little bit sleepy, they might not be full of energy, and if they fly and land on the ground, and you kids act all excited and you're running around, you're going to step on one and squish it. So everybody, Mike is so good with kids, but he explained the whole thing. We're going to release the butterflies and stay right in our spot. And we were all in a really big circle. It was like the last event of camp and of the service to honor their loved ones. It was so touching. So, you would open up your envelope and your butterfly might be so weak he tried to fly, but then just like lands on your hand. Or somebody else's butterfly might be trying to fly away and land on my shoulder. And it was just so special. And the kids, we all just really loved it. So anyway, that's some of my experience with these kids. Let's see, I wanted to show you, before I move on, I'm going to talk about my thing with Leslie, but I have something I wanted to show you. It's on my clipboard here. Okay. All right. I have a grandson named Leon. We are exceptionally close. We have been all along. He was 2 years old. It was only 2 years old when I had a couple of surgeries that afterwards I wasn't allowed to bend over or lift anything for several weeks. And he was so protective of me at age 2, okay? These are children that, mind you, can't feel any sorrow or sadness or feelings, but he was so careful with me. And if I even tried to pick up a Kleenex off the floor, Agma, like my grandkids call me Agma. He's like, no, don't do it. Remember, don't bend over. Okay, don't pick that up. Like, he was so caring. He was so earnest. Anyway, I want to show you a letter he wrote me a couple months ago. It's really dark. Yeah, it's really kind of dark here. I'm probably just going to have to explain it. But he drew a picture. He drew a picture on this side. And on the other side, he wrote his name at the top, Leon. And if you look down below, he misspelled it and had to scratch it out. Like, he started out, you can see it's L-O-E, and he scratched it all out and had to write it. And then he also wrote my name, to Agma. And you can tell he wrote that because the G is backwards. And then he had his mom write his message, his whole message to me for him. And I want to tell you guys what it says. Agma. Okay, first of all, let me tell you, I see these kids every week and we play, with their toys and read books. Every week, okay? This is what he wrote to me. Agma, I miss you. You do good tricks. You're my favorite person of all the persons I know. Are you telling me this 3-year-old wouldn't feel any sadness if I died tomorrow? It's just so absurd. Donna is just so insane, I guess. All right, let me wrap this up now. I'm just going to try to be brief with this experience I had. This was about 1.5 years ago. I was up in New York visiting my best friend. One night, she had me go with her to her choir practice. Excuse me. It was her choir rented space from a synagogue. So that's where we went. That's where we met. And I was allowed to sit in on their rehearsal. And at the end of it, they had like a business meeting and they were voting and stuff. So they wanted their privacy. So I left the room and I just kind of started walking around in the synagogue, up and down the hallways and the outer like entry area. And it was in the evening, so there was like only one person there in the office. I could see one person, but it was really quiet. It was, kind of dark. I was walking down the hallway looking at pictures, and I remember on one wall they had a lot of pamphlets with guidance and help for people who were experiencing real life problems. I did bring this up once. I think it was on Judy's show. I was so impressed with it. And I remember, there were probably 20 of them, but I remember 3 of them. One was about when you have somebody who's mentally ill in your family. One was if you're Jewish and getting divorced. And one was about if there is division in your family. So I just remember thinking all 3 of those might have helped Dan. I mean, they might have appealed to him with what he was going through. But it was just one more thing about the Jewish faith that to me, it's such a beautiful religion. And you know how I kind of feel about religion is, I don't care what religion it is. That's my clock, sorry. Amish, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, Muslim, I don't care what it is. If somebody has a faith, a belief that's giving more meaning and significance to their life, I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that's a thing to celebrate. And so for me, first of all, Donna and Harvey threatened to disown Rob because the woman he fell in love with wasn't Jewish enough. Now, they've killed Dan because he's too Jewish. Somehow this whole issue got so worked up in me. It's something that's always been like extremely upsetting, that when you see someone who just comes alive because of what their faith means to them, so important to him that he made sure Wendy agreed to raise their children that way. She agreed to that, even though she herself was more not a kosher Jewish person, but she was like culturally Jewish. I think that's how it has been explained to me. But she made that promise to him, okay? And then that's one of the reasons they killed him, because Wendy didn't want to live that kosher lifestyle anymore. The kids, she thought the kids were crying when he was taking them to synagogue. There's a word I forget, shoal, is it shoal? But anyway, just the whole thing to me was just so disturbing. in a way, I just like, well, anyway, I was in this synagogue, you know, with all these feelings swirling in my head, and I just kind of started feeling a vibe in there. And I can't, you know, I just felt like I was having a close connection to Dan Markel, even though I didn't know him. I've never met him. I didn't even know Wendy during the time she was married to him. But it was this unexplainable experience and feeling that I didn't understand it myself. So when I wanted to make a video and share that, I didn't, because I didn't understand it myself, and I thought people are going to think I'm just being really melodramatic or something. And that's where Leslie kind of impressed me, that she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable with people about how strongly she reacted. So it's kind of given me the courage to relate this story that I had. I didn't say anything while I was up in New York, but when I came home, the more I thought about it, the more it was bothering me, and I finally reached out to a friend of mine I hadn't spoken to in years, but I knew she was not only Jewish, she was very adherent to kosher law. Her whole family revolved around being kosher. It was really important to her. So I wrote her a letter, like out of the blue, and I told her, you know, I've had this experience and I'm so upset about it, and blah, blah, blah. I just kind of poured my heart out to her. And I heard back from her, and we talked about it, and she also was really expressing appreciation that someone who was non-Jewish could recognize what a very beautiful faith they have, and that otherwise she has a lot of negative experiences with prejudiced people, or people who stereotype Jewish people. But she also mailed me a yarmulke. It was I still have it. I would show it to you, but it's actually buried under somewhere. But she sent me a yarmulke. It was made out of like turquoise satin, and a little pin she sent me. And I'm sorry, I don't remember. On the back was a card, and it explained Pepper. I'm sorry. It explained some issue that was prominent in the Jewish community right then, that they were supporting. It was a pin about that. But anyway, she sent me these items, and I don't even know why, but they meant so much to me. And the yarmulke, when I was thinking, I'm going to talk to people, you all, and tell you about this experience that was so profound to me, and I was going to title it "Me and My Yarmulke," and because I thought, oh, that'll grab their attention, because they know I'm not Jewish. So what would that be about? But I just never did share it, because I didn't understand it, but it was very profound, and that yarmulke for some reason is extremely special to me. I've never worn it. I never put it on, because in my thinking, this is something that's sacred, and I don't want to disrespect it, and I'm not even Jewish, right? And I did some research, and I found out that, yes, usually men wear yarmulkes, but sometimes women do too. And I read that even non-Jewish people sometimes are invited to wear them at a synagogue, at a Jewish event, like a funeral or a wedding. But I still didn't put it on. But for some reason, I just felt that connection to Dan, and that just meant so much to me, you know, hearing from my friend. So I think I covered everything. Let me just look at my notes and make sure, because I just feel like it was a little bit disjointed, and I'm actually, never mind, I don't even see my notes. I lost them when I pulled out that picture. Oh, here they are, under my picture from Leon. Let's see. I think, yeah, I know I covered all that. Yeah. Yep, that's it. I covered it all. So that's the end of part 2. Thank you for watching. Thank you for all your energy going towards justice for Dan. And guess what now? It's time for Wendy. Wendy, yep, you're next.